Okay, awesome. So for the STEM student panel today, it's going to be really focusing on two things. The first thing is we're going to be looking at just exploring mentorship and mentors and how that can show up through a student's academic journey. We're also going to be looking at that same thing, but how it can be showcased and displayed with STEM involvement. And then just talking about a little bit of what STEM involvement can look like as well. And we're going to do that through a unique experience or display that you might not be used to, and they're called Ignite presentations. They're 5-minute presentations, 20 slides, and they auto advance every 15 seconds. So as you see the panelists present, just be mindful that there might be a little bit of awkward pauses, waiting for the slide to advance, or they might have to rush a little bit. So just be mindful of that when we go through these presentations. And there's going to be lots of pictures, so it really captures and paints what they're talking about, and hopefully it'll be engaging and interesting. So the flow of the panelists today, Katie will be going first. She's a 4th-year STEM student, and then Ricardo is a 5th-year STEM student, and then we'll have about 5 to 10 minutes to ask them questions. And then we'll have the other 2 panelists go, which will be Theresa. She's a 4th-year STEM student, and Hassan, who is a post-baccalaureate researcher. And then we'll have some time to ask them questions, and then we're going to open it up to all panelists. So Katie is first. Like I said, she's a 4th-year student in biomedical sciences and minoring in zoology. So are you ready, Katie?
I am ready.
Okay, awesome.
Alrighty, hello everyone. My name is Katie Croker and my pronouns are she, her, and hers. And I'm a 4th-year student majoring in biomedical sciences with a minor in zoology. I'm also part of the honors program and I'm really excited to speak with you all. So I'm from Falcon, which is just outside of Colorado Springs, and I'm Colorado native, so I love things outdoors, and that was part of my reason for staying in state at CSU. However, the main reason that I really wanted to come to CSU was my desire to be a veterinarian. I'm the stereotypical pre-vet student that's wanted to be a vet since I was like 4 years old. And so the program and opportunities at CSU made coming here a really good fit for me. I decided to study biomedical sciences because it was a major that would satisfy all my prereqs for vet school, but I didn't really know much else about a degree in science. I knew like the types of classes that I would take, but I didn't really see the full connection between my degree and vet school. And that's where mentorship really came in for me. I had great adults and peers in my life help me understand what opportunities I had available to me and different ways I could succeed and use these to work toward my career goals. So things that I look for in a good mentor are being knowledgeable, having a willingness to connect, being authentic and honest, having similar values, and being invested in your success as a student. So initially, I found this in my academic advisor. She provided knowledge and insight to my degree and how I could tailor my classes to my specific interests. And she also just answered a lot of basic questions and was really helpful when I was designing my class schedule for the next years. After I had a handle on my classes, I started to find mentorship in my professors. So one of these was my physiology professor, Dr. Boma. The picture on the bottom right here was from a very long study session I had in the library for one of his exams. It was a tough class, but I loved it. And I initially spoke to him in office hours to get help with the material, but I slowly developed a relationship with him, and that allowed me to learn more about a career in science and research. And it led me to seek out research and apply for my current job where I dose mice in preclinical tuberculosis drug trials. I also gained mentorship while studying abroad in New Zealand. That's where I took my first zoology class, and I initially struggled with the teaching style there, but my professor gave me tips on how to succeed and was why I decided to add a zoology minor. I am also employed as an admissions ambassador for the Office of Admissions, and I gained mentorship through professional and student supervisors, and they trained me to be a better leader, team member, and advocate for diversity and inclusion in higher education. And then one of my favorite mentors that I've had, and probably most influential, is Ann Bowen, who's my pre-vet advisor, who's outlined a really great set of things to be competitive for vet school and think about what I want to do and why. She's also the advisor for Pre-Vet Club, and our club exists to expose students to many areas of veterinary medicine and provide them with knowledge, tools, and relationships to be successful pre-vet students. This has been a huge source of peer mentorship for me. So we bring in guest speakers to talk about topics ranging from emergency vet med to equine rehabilitation. We also volunteer in the community for organizations like the Doggy Olympics and the Wolf Sanctuary, and do hands-on labs and dissections. Through Pre-Vet Club, I've been able to get advice from older pre-vet students about classes and the application process. And I've also learned about peers and their unique involvements both in and outside of campus. It's been really invaluable for me to connect with a community of like-minded individuals through this club. I've gotten to network with guest speakers through it. I'm planning on becoming a vet in the Army, and so I got to speak with an Army speaker that we brought in and met with her later in the semester. So she became a contact for me asking about a career in the military. And so mentorship has come from a lot of different places and can look different for everyone, but I found them in my academic advisors, peers, professors, employers, and through my pre-vet advisor. So it's a great way to get connected. If you don't have mentor figures in your life, you may be wondering where to start and how to find it. But luckily, just by being at CSU, you already have access to an academic advisor, which can be a great starting point just for asking questions and getting connected. For me though, my biggest tips are to just be proactive and open-minded. I used to be really terrified of reaching out to professors or guest speakers at Pre-Vet Club, but taking the risk was totally worth it. And mentorship can come in many forms, so be open-minded to wherever you might find these connections. And lastly, if you're interested in veterinary medicine, come meet with us in Pre-Vet Club. We have 12 officers on our team and would love to be a source of knowledge and peer mentorship for students interested in the field. And so we have virtual office hours you can find on our website. So thank you all for your time and good luck on your STEM journeys.
Thank you, Katie. Our next presenter before we open it up to questions for the first two panelists is Ricardo. He is a fifth biochemistry and biomedical sciences double major. Are you ready, Ricardo?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, awesome.
All right, everyone. So like Nicolette said, my name is Ricardo Vasquez. I am a biomedical science and biochemistry double major. It's my 5th year here, so it is a little bit bittersweet because, I mean, I'm going to be ending my time. But my journey through STEM and how that has affected by mentorship really is like one step at a time. So starting off, a little bit about me. I'm really big into family. My parents are both migrants from Mexico. So I am actually the only one to be pursuing a STEM degree in my family. And then, so originally I'm from Los Angeles, California, that county. And so we moved here when I was 12 and we moved to Greeley. So that's really where my mentorship journey starts. Well, kind of starts, because technically really when I was at Greeley Central High School, I didn't really feel like I was connected to a mentorship program and it really had any mentors there. And I ended up actually almost failing out of my high school. So after a couple of years of working, so I worked at a hardware store, I worked in field service, and I worked in manufacturing. I was like, you know what, I need to do something else with my life. So I decided I'm going to go back to school. So I ended up starting at Ames Community College. I spent a lot of time here just trying to figure out what I wanted to do. I was pursuing an associate in science at that time. And really my journey into science really starts in 2nd year of Gen Chem with Christine Gondinski. She was one of my she was an instructor for me. And really, as I learned, Ames, awesome, yes. As I learned, she's super supportive of her students, and really it was kind of a branching out into lab work. So then I was like, okay, I want to go into science. So then I met with another mentor, and he was really a career mentor for me. This is Juan Valdez, and he helped me figure out what I wanted to do with well, a career in science. And really, it's kind of changing as it goes. But really, when I started here at CSU, I started as a biochemistry major, and I really didn't know where to go. So I started looking out for communities and trying to figure out where to go from STEM, or with my STEM degree. So I, had to save this when I needed a little help finding something. And the thing that I was trying to find was a community. And really, I ended up stumbling upon two really awesome individuals, Sean Cross and Megan Miller. These two are PhD candidates. Sean Cross actually just graduated this summer and is at Cornell University, but they really opened up the doors to undergraduate research and really what that means for underrepresented minorities in STEM. The way they did that is through our student organization known as SACNAS, the Society for Advancement of Chicanos and Native Americans in Science. And really, it's a community of mentors is what I would describe it as. Just because when I joined it, I really didn't know what I was doing. I mean, I was really quick to jump into a leadership position, and that fall of 2018, I became the treasurer of the organization. And as we've kind of gone through, we've grown, and I've grown as a leader myself. So I'm able to be a mentor for students like Vincent and Isabella here. They're really awesome two students, and they have really helped grow the SACNAS chapter in a way that is different and new. And that has been in a series of meetings called the We Hear You, Let's Talk About It meetings. And these meetings are really geared towards getting students to engage in dialogue and get to know each other and get to know your own bias and get to know what it is that drives you in your STEM field and kind of communicate with everybody else. So you kind of form these peer mentor-mentee relationships where you get to engage with faculty, you get to engage with graduate students, you get to engage with other undergrads. So two of our really awesome mentors in SACNAS is Dr. Laybourne here and Erica Suchman. They actually help us a lot with mentoring students that are coming up from high school using like CSDF. More about that later. And then Arlene Nettydog really is the heart of SACNAS, and she's really helped me grow as she was actually the first person that got me interested in SACNAS and was like, do you want to be a leader? And I was like, yes, I want to be a leader. So she's helped me grow in that position. And then with Arlene being the options person, we have Dr. Shane Kanatis, and he's really the action person. And he's really taught me how to, if you say something, stick to it. If you want to, be the change, be the action that you want to see in your community, and do it yourself and, really grab life. So this is kind of our little community here. And we, meet on Zoom and we mentor each other, train each other, help each other. And really it's about connecting.
Thank you, Ricardo. All right, so the next 5 to 10 minutes are open to questions for Katie and Ricardo. And feel free to unmute yourself and ask your question or put in the chat box. I'm gonna stop sharing my screen for a little bit. That way I can just get caught up on the chat box in case there were questions. But feel free to start asking questions.
I just saw a quick one in the chat that I can answer. Someone asked the name of the professor I mentioned, and it was Dr. Boma. Dr. Walrand also taught physiology, I think, for a lot of students, and Dr. Boma taught like the reproduction unit of that. So he taught my entire physiology course, so that's how I got to know him.
Thank you for answering my question, Katie. So I have a follow-up question to Katie and then also one for Ricardo. So for Katie, how did you know that the teachers share those values, and how would you recommend in this kind of digital time we go about ascertaining that they have similar values? And Ricardo, it seems like there was a lot of, on the flyers that you displayed, there was a lot of mention of like social justice and that kind of involvement. How would you recommend balancing that social justice fatigue that can come about with the student responsibilities that come about being a double major?
I'll go ahead and answer the first part of your question, Brandon. Those are awesome questions. I think that's something that can be really hard in general, especially in a virtual space. For me personally, I think you can tell a lot about a person by the way they speak and interact with you, and also by the way they teach a class. So being a student in his class and seeing how he lectured and how he managed students and took questions and was there to support students helped me see like his genuine interest in student success and the way he was willing to be flexible and respond to the way students were either achieving or not achieving, and how he could change what he was doing and the support that he offered to make sure that we all succeeded together. That was something that I really valued in him. I think also if you have specific things that are really important to you, about people's personal values that you can ask them if you have a one-on-one meeting, like over Zoom, because now we aren't, you know, you can't just go up to their office and talk to them. You could, you know, just ask them directly about something that you're interested in. But I do think you can tell a lot by the way someone interacts with people, and the way the direction of conversations tend to go, and where they're passionate about topics and where they're less so. So that's my biggest piece of advice as far as kind of determining someone's values and seeing if they align with yours.
All right. So how do you balance social justice and being a double major? And I think they're two distinct things, I feel. Just because I mean, I'm a double major, but I added a major later on when I was started getting more interested in medicine specifically, and so that's why I added the biomedical science major. Not to mention, there's a couple of really awesome classes that are in that major that I was like, hey, I could just take these, and then it'll add it. So that was kind of a secondary thought, but really, social justice and being at the front of those issues, it's part of, you really have to put yourself out there, and you are going to get tired of it, and you might feel like it's gonna fatigue you, but really it's a growth process, and you really have to make time for it on your own time. So they're very distinct, but you definitely can make time for them. I don't really feel like they're too difficult to handle otherwise. Sorry, that answered your question.
Let's do one more question if anybody has another question, and then we'll move on to the next two presentations.
I don't mind asking a question if anyone else doesn't have one. This question is for Katie and Ricardo. What recommendations would you have for a student who is seeking mentorship from a faculty member or even getting connected to a student organization? And then just to add, so that I just wanted to say that I love the picture of your study group, Katie, your study session. And Ricardo, I actually have a lot of experience at Ames, so I loved that part of it as well, your presentation.
So I guess I'll start with how do you approach teachers and other peers for mentorship? Just really be willing to just kind of be like, hey, this is what I'm going through, and be able to talk about the issues that you're facing, and anything that you really want more info on, because I mean, you don't know what you don't know, and people are definitely reservoirs for that information, especially like if faculty or if you have a faculty member that that you really look up to, and they're involved in a bunch of stuff that you want to be involved in, then you ask them. And even though it could be intimidating, sometimes I know with Dr. Suchman, it was super intimidating for me to ask her for anything, because I feel like she's involved in everything, and it's great. And like she's super proactive for, you know, helping those that need help. But really, if you want to be in the position that somebody else is in, you have to ask them what it feels like to be in that position.
I can also touch a little bit on just like finding mentorship in faculty. Really what I've always done approaching professors is just gone to their office hours and met with them one-on-one. Sometimes it happens naturally through, like if I was going into office hours about material and then just having conversations in between. But there's definitely been a few people where I was just like, I really admire this professor. I think they're extremely intelligent and driven, and they have a lot of wisdom to impart on me, and I would like to know more about them and hear from them. So I just set up a meeting, which I think can be really scary. And so something that I kind of just did mentally before I went in was had a few talking points that I for sure wanted to bring up, and that helped kind of spur a natural conversation. So for example, when I talked to Dr. Boma for the first time, like as a non-material related conversation, I had really wanted to talk to him about his experience with education in the Netherlands, because that's where he's from. and then find out his journey about how he ended up teaching at CSU, and also some of the research that he does, because he talks about it in class a little bit sometimes. So I kind of had those main points that I wanted to talk with him about, and then brought up, you know, international travel and like how I would like to incorporate that into my career. And so we talked about that, and then brought up research, and he told me about his weird path and different things that he had done. So I had a few different things that helped guide that. And so I think that's a really good way to go about it when you are talking to someone for the first time, so you can have a productive conversation and then kind of feel it out from there, see how that went. And then also, I think part of your question was, you know, connecting with student organizations. I think SLICE is a really great resource. I know that, I think it's still going on. They were having like a virtual involvement fair because we couldn't do it in person. And so they had a lot of information on their website about different clubs. And, you know, most clubs either use Ramlink or have websites. So I think just doing a little bit of self-research and also reaching out to offices like the SLICE can help you find organization that's related to your personal interests or to your career and academic interests. And then you can reach out to them and maybe find more mentorship through those types of groups.
Thank you.
Thank you for answering the questions so far. We're gonna progress to our next two panelists. And before we start with Theresa, I just wanted to remind folks that joined us a little bit later to make sure to change your name on Zoom to your first and last name, just so we can be able to track your attendance in case you forget to fill out the post-survey or post-assessment, depending if you're Thrive or Arrive. Don't worry if you don't know how to do that, because there's a slide at the end that I'll put up in case you need a little bit help with changing to your first Zoom. So our next panelist is Theresa. She is the fourth-year environmental engineering student. Are you ready, Theresa?
Ready.
Okay, awesome.
Awesome. So like Nicolette just said, my name is Theresa, and I'm in my fourth year of environmental engineering. I'm originally from Littleton, Colorado, but I love it up here in Fort Collins. That picture on your guys' far left is my sister and I up at Horsetooth, which is a great time. I also love local music and my plants. I'm an environmental engineering student, which means I work a lot with soils and water and the environment. So here are a few pictures from my geotechnical engineering class, which was a really good time. And I'm currently in my senior design project, and we got to name our group Rainy Day Engineering. Along with environmental engineering, I've had a couple internships with an engineering consultant group, which has allowed me to travel and see what remediation projects look like in real life. So I feel so thankful that environmental engineering has worked for me. Now to talk a little bit about SWE and how I got involved and what it looks like at CSU. SWE stands for the Society of Women Engineers, but we are an all-inclusive organization here on campus. Gotta catch my breath. I first got involved with Introduce a Girl to Engineering Day, which is one of the largest outreach events we hold. I joined the committee without any friends. I didn't know anyone, but I felt like I wanted to get involved in general. And this ended up being a great opportunity to see what reaching out to other people and younger generations look like. So once I got involved in that, I took on an officer position my second year doing publicity. So I got to run our Instagram and Facebook and let everyone know about our events. And so this is me with our officer team. And through my officer team and through being in SWE in general, I really got to grow my community and make a lot of friends with these amazing people, which comes really naturally, I found, if you get involved, if you involve yourself in an event or something like that. So those are a couple of pictures of us at a couple events. And the more involved I got to get involved in my community as well outside of SWE. So I got to volunteer at the Denver County Fair this past year to attract kids to come learn about science and what engineering looks like. And I also got to go on a couple national conferences. These were great opportunities to not only learn about engineering, but also make connections and network with professionals in the field and really connect with the people in your organization since you're traveling together and doing all sorts of things. So we were fortunate enough to bring quite a big team to our last national conference in Anaheim, California, which was a super fun time. And Nationals is on Zoom this year, so I'm really excited to see how that's going to turn out. There's a lot of room for creativity on Zoom. We hosted our first welcome event through Zoom, which ended up being really successful and a really fun time. And one thing I've noticed about the incoming class and a lot of people who are in their first and second years is you guys are ready to interact through this interface. And even though we are living through the Zoom times, there are those moments for interaction that you can get to see your friends socially distancing or through a camera. And I wouldn't say it's impacted my relationships as much as I thought it would. Now to move on to a couple mentors I've had through SWE. These three amazing women here have been mentoring me pretty much since day one, since I joined SWE, formally and informally. So I first got a mentorship through SWE because I needed help. I was overwhelmed by classes, I was overwhelmed emotionally, and I just felt like I could never recharge. So my initial mentorship was like, I need help balancing engineering. And what that ended up looking like for me, this is exactly how I felt. So I wanted to seek help through college advice and how to manage my schedule. And that's exactly what I got out of this mentorship through SWE. And they do set that up where members from SWE get to mentor each other and vice versa. So that was a really amazing opportunity. And those three women kind of each helped me professionally, personally, and academically, and really advanced me to make the person I am today. And so through that, I've been able to kind of pass on the mentorship, and I now have my own mentees through SWE, both formally and informally. You don't have to be part of a mentorship program to have mentees and mentors, which is a really important lesson I've been learning. And I still get to connect with these people through Zoom, which is different, but still really powerful and oftentimes even more accessible. So I've been able to kind of widen the breadth of getting mentored and mentoring. But I am excited for things to go back to normal, where we can go to events such as middle schoolers, teaching them how to make bridges out of toothpicks, or national conferences where we all stopped by a piercing shop but did not get pierced. So, but it's just a really exciting time. So thank you for listening, and I would love to answer any questions later about SWE.
Thank you, Theresa. Our next panelist is Hadassah. She is a postbaccalaureate researcher in the biomedical sciences and recently graduated this past spring. Hadassah, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay.
Well, as Nicolette said, I'm Hadassah. My pronouns are she, her, and hers. I was a cell and molecular neuroscience major, and I'm currently a postbaccalaureate researcher in a biomedical sciences lab. I come from a big family, multiracial, native Coloradoan, and I was homeschooled for the majority of my life, which set me up for a really interesting path from the start. But I don't have any regrets. I have a lot of different interests as a Coloradoan, outdoors, singing. I'm a fuzzy blanket enthusiast, and I really love getting involved as much as I can. And I've learned a lot about how to do that during my time at CSU. So I started out loving neuroscience because I worked in elder care, and I had a really interesting journey with my dad, who was diagnosed with Parkinson's when I was in high school. And that kind of started me on my path into neuroscience in a way from Ames, actually, just like Ricardo. And after I spent 2 years at Ames, I transferred to CSU, where I eventually graduated. However, when I first came to CSU, it was definitely a rough road for me. I felt like one person in a million. I was felt like I wasn't connected to anyone, and I wasn't purposeful with how I was going to develop my career, wanting to go into neuroscience. And so it took me a little while, but I actually met Ricardo first, and he and Andrew, who are both presidents of SACNAS at one time, got me involved in this amazing student organization that completely changed my life. and I would say the outcome of my professional advancement. So I got to go to a professional conference, and I got to get involved with a really amazing group of people and eventually serve as the president of SACNAS last year. This community has made a complete difference in my life, and especially my our beloved mentor, Arlene, who inspired me and always pushed me to get involved in research and to actually pursue what I wanted to do. And she led me to this group that actually allowed me to get involved in research on campus, which is the lab I currently still work in, which was another amazing group of mentors and fellow students. And it allowed me to really delve into what I wanted to do with my career. Also involved in SACNAS were Sean and Megan, who are grad students. Getting involved in a student org can give you a great opportunity to network with people who are a little bit further down the path in STEM than you are. And that can be an amazing opportunity. Even more so, getting involved in a student organization can allow you to get to know faculty in a non-formal setting. Unlike being with them in a classroom, you can kind of get to know them and they can become mentors to you, even if you're not even in the same field necessarily as they are. Much like these mentors were to me. And in being involved in mentorship with SACNAS really inspired me to find a way to give back to my community in neuroscience, especially knowing that my community is diverse, but not having a lot of support in mentorship areas. So I had the privilege of meeting this wonderful girl named Aya in the Neuroscience Student Organization, and we together started the peer mentoring program for the Neuroscience Student Organization. We had no idea what that would mean. We just wanted to help out. And it's amazing what two people who have a passion for mentoring can do and what you can do. And it could affect tons of people. You never know. So if you have a passion for something, especially being mentored or mentoring others, reach out, get involved. You can get involved in a student organization like SACNAS, get involved in SACNAS. You can get involved in a student org that's related to your major, or even just get involved in research. That is a huge deal, especially in STEM. You can also get involved in a student org that's related to an identity of yours as well. Getting involved really allows you to form a network of people that can more likely connect you to the correct people that can help you advance. It's not necessarily about knowing more people, but it's about knowing the right people who can help you grow in your professional advancement, in your academic advancement, and who can help you take those steps in your career to actually succeed. And you need both of those. So my take-home message to you guys is to be proactive. You're not going to find a mentor staying in your apartment all day and not reaching out to anyone. Be proactive. And also, if you've grown and you see a lack of mentorship in an area, in a community that you're in, do something about it. You can step up. You can get involved in bigger ways in leadership, and that way you can really make a difference in your community and beyond. So, thank you very much.
Thank you, Hadassah. So now we're going to take about 10-ish minutes to Theresa and Hadassah some questions. So feel free to ask questions in the chat box or unmute yourself to ask your question, whatever is comfortable for everybody. And I'll stop sharing my screen temporarily.
Really quick, I did see a question about the national conference and about the mentoring program I was a part of. So to go to the Society of Women Engineers National Conference, you need to be a member, and becoming a member is really easy. You do pay a one-time fee for your undergrad and your first year in the professional world, which can be covered through our organization. But if you poke around our website and if you just Google SWE at CSU, you can find that site really easily. You can look into becoming a member and then register for the national conference. The conference is taking place in November, so you still have a little bit of time if you're interested. And I believe my information will be somewhere from this talk, and you can definitely feel free to reach out to me directly about that as well. And so for the mentoring program I was a part of, SWE does have its own mentoring program similar to the one that Hadassah described through the one that she started. And that started a couple weeks ago, unfortunately, but if you do want to become a part of SWE, we can definitely find you a peer mentor at any point. And I'm sure that's very similar for any student org who has a peer mentoring program. Sorry, for Hannah, were you talking to me to put that name in the chat, like of the organization? Definitely.
Any other questions for Theresa and Hadassah?
I have a question about if you all can share, maybe Hadassah, like what is it like to be in the lab? Like, you know, yeah, I don't know that, like I'm familiar, some of our other students of like, what is it like to be in the lab? Like what kind of work are you doing? Really like unfamiliar with what even that means.
Yeah, so through some really great people at SACNAS who really encouraged me to get involved in undergraduate research, I was kind of empowered to reach out. I know for a lot of STEM majors, if you want to advance to get your PhD or even some other professional degrees, getting involved as an undergraduate researcher in some research that's going on campus is a really valuable experience. It's kind of a daunting thing to try and just like cold call professors and be like, I want to work in your lab, but that's kind of how it works. Getting to know faculty other ways also opens the door to get involved in research in undergrad. I went for my major, we're actually one of the few major undergraduate majors on campus that has a thesis requirement where we actually have to do research and put a thesis together. So that was kind of like, oh my gosh, I need to do this. So I kind of cold called some professors and I started working in this lab just by meeting with this professor and asking if he would be willing to meet with me and talk about his research. So I got involved in his lab. I think it was like end of the summer of my last year here, so last year. And it's kind of an interesting environment because I graduated now and I'm working full-time in the lab. It's totally different than in undergrad, but in undergrad, getting involved in research is really amazing because it kind of just fits into the nooks and crannies of your classes. So you kind of get to work on a project with other people, and your PI is the guy, whoever runs the lab, it's called primary investigator. They'll work with you to start producing research, and it sounds scary, but it's not. It's a lot like your classes where they kind of give you the tools and give you the information you need to succeed. I personally work in a biomedical sciences lab, but we do neuroscience research. And we do mostly like synapse research, which is like how brain cells communicate with each other. And we're specifically working on autism and Alzheimer's right now. But I would highly encourage anyone who's interested in research or interested in a PhD to find out more about getting involved in undergraduate research through SACNAS.
And now I would like to open it up to everybody to ask any questions to any of the panelists for the next 5 to 10 minutes. We have a question from Fabiola, and she asked, how do you persist through some of your more difficult classes? And anybody can take that on.
I can take that one. Starting in freshman year, I took Physics 141. I don't know who else have had to take that, but that was one of the hardest classes I've had to take in a really long time, and I felt completely unprepared for it, and I feel like a lot of my peers did too. Some of the best tips I can give are reaching out to your professor through office hours. I know you probably hear that a bunch, and you're maybe like, I don't know how to do that, I don't know what to say, and honestly, an email with the class title in the subject saying like what class is in and like homework question, and you introduce yourself and just kind of lay out what you're confused with. Professors almost always reply, especially in a timely manner, and it feels uncomfortable and sometimes it feels like you shouldn't be doing that, but it is completely reasonable to email your professors with specific homework questions. Additionally, get contact info from people in your class. They don't have to be your friends, you don't have to know them super well, but just starting a conversation by saying, hey, we have a test coming up, do you want to maybe study together, or can I text you later about this problem? That was a huge help for me, and it not only helped me in the class, but it also helped me to build friends and relationships that way. So yeah, I would say those two. It really is when you feel like you're in a dead end with a class, at least for me personally, I kind of need a human connection and someone to push me forward with that. So professors and peers.
I just want to hop on and say that I have to leave to get to a staff meeting, but thank you all for coming, and thank you, Nicolette, for organizing this and allowing me to speak. And I hope you all have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, Katie. Would
Yes.
anybody else like to add? Ricardo?
I could add. So I'm currently enrolled in a class called PChem, and well, that test really threw me for a loop, mainly because I got a 50, and that was the median score for the test. So just taking failure in stride and kind of realizing what you did to get that score, and then just working towards kind of setting up a schedule to kind of practice more and be more intimately familiar with the material is what I would do. Just like actually like writing down, it's like I need to watch the lecture and practice this problem like 20 times. It can be really good sometimes. For me personally, that's what I just kind of brute force it. That's what I did with like organic chemistry and physics as well. But yeah, you do get tired.
So I see a question here about how you get involved in neuroscience research. Specifically at CSU, there's not really like an application process, which is one of the hardest parts about getting involved in undergraduate research. There's not like a streamlined, get in line, get a ticket, and get assigned some research. Like you kind of have to, first of all, find some faculty who are doing research that sounds interesting to you, and then reach out to them. What I would recommend is for you to Google MCIN, and I will put it in the chat, MCIN CSU faculty. MCIN is the Molecular Cellular Integrative Neurosciences Committee, which is like basically a list of all the faculty on campus who are doing neuroscience research. And they're in a lot of different departments and doing a lot of different stuff. So I'd recommend looking on that list and seeing if anyone's doing research that's interesting to you. Maybe look at some of their papers, and then just email them and be like, hey, I'm interested in what you're doing. Can I have the opportunity to sit down and talk with you? That is probably sounds like a challenging thing, but honestly, they expect for people to reach out to them about doing research. So I will put that in the chat for you.
Also, I guess I could kind of if I can shout this out. And SACMAS is doing getting involved in a research lab meeting next week on Friday at 5, and that will be in the newsletter if anybody's interested in that, and we'll in the AAC newsletter, and then we'll kind of talk about how like a general progress of if you are interested in specific research, what you should do, kind of, and how you should proceed. It can be an intimidating process, so the more you talk through it and talk through the process, it'll be better for just kind of like figuring out how you could do it, and then if you can get funded for it, which would be great.
We have time for about 1 to 2 more questions if anybody has questions about anything for our panelists. Okay, and feel free to put any more questions in chat if you think of it, but I'm going to reshare my screen real quick so I can do some reminders and thank yous, and so everybody can, words, just enjoy the rest of the evening since we are running a bit late. Okay, so first of all, thank you panelists for presenting us, taking the time to be here to share your experiences about mentorship and your involvement and other things, just with your journey with being a STEM student. I really appreciate it, and you've really supported our students just getting insight on different things, so thank you. And thank you everybody for taking the time to attend. We did have some technical difficulties at the beginning, but I'm happy that folks were still able to attend after the 5 p.m. time. So the reminders that I have today is for STEM Arrive. So you'll have to fill out that post-assessment if you're in STEM Arrive by Friday, and I'll post the link in chat. The next presentation is session 4. It's a required session, and it's pre-recorded. You'll have all week to complete it. And then for STEM Thrive, you'll have to fill out the post-survey link tonight after the session if you can, but if you can't, just by the end of tonight to get credit. And the next session for STEM Thrive is the CSU USA FAFSA Workshop Informational, and that's next Thursday at 12 p.m. So thank you all again. And if you haven't changed your name yet on Zoom so we can help with attendance, if you need reminders about filling out, this is just an image of how to do that. And I'll drop the links in chat for the assessments, but thank you all for coming. I really appreciate it.
Thank you all for inviting us.